back to Nigeria. In our earnings season, Access Corp PLC recently announced a sustained earnings growth for the 9 months ended September. Interest income was up 21%. Pre-tax profit climbed 10.4% in the period. Meanwhile, the executive management of the Financial Services Group held an investors' call on Tuesday to provide further details on the earnings. Ayodeji Eboh is a licensed market professional and the managing director and chief business officer at Optimus by Afrinvest. And he joins me now for a chat into the Access Corp latest financials. Thank you for connecting in tonight on the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, good evening. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. Broadly speaking, what do you make of the Access Corp 9 months earnings, finance professional point of view?
Okay, looking at the 9 month results, which was released not long after the H1 2025 result, I would say that it was really a major boost because when you look at from the top line, I would say what to like. You look at the top line, gross earnings grew by about 14% to about 3.9 trillion naira. You also look at the bank from also the diversification. Earnings is being diversified. So some of the subsidiaries were beginning to see major contribution from some of those subsidiaries like the Access, ARM pensions. We're seeing hydrogen and the Oxygen X. They are beginning to contribute meaningfully to revenue. You also want to see the geographical diversification, beginning to see less reliance on the Nigerian subsidiaries, which is one of the major focus of the bank to diversify their revenue base. That's also improved. You look at the cost to income ratio, even as at H1, which was around 54% rather, and it's now improved to about, I think currently at 54 rather, pardon me, then from about 59% in half year. So that shows some improvement. But when you look at some of the things that may also be of concern, you see that the PBT still drop despite the improvement in top line. You also see that impairment charges increase significantly, over 100%. And that can also be traced to the forbearance, the target of the bank to exit that forbearance cycle, which is also positive in the long run. You also still see that despite the cost to income ratio still looks very high. That means that there's still a need to continue to focus on efficiency. But by and large, if we look at it overall, the profit level on a quarter-on-quarter basis was about 125% to over 300 billion. That is positive. And I think that the bank, based on the strategy they are pursuing, that geographical diversification, rather than depending only on Nigeria, it's coming down to as low as 37%, which I think is also very positive for the bank.
Interesting, you're already digging into some of the key line items of that Access Corp results for me. What, broadly speaking, or what, if you put together, how does that show, all the numbers show that this company is on sustained earnings growth in terms of other things, other line items that you see? You talk about the diversified earnings that is coming through from its Pan-African and global expansion, as it were. Do you think this consolidation phase, this phase for Access Corp is on track?
Yeah, so I would say that the phase is on track. You know, when the investment phase, which they've done the acquisition, now trying to consolidate, and like the way they've put it in their investors book is the optimization stage, because that is what is really key. That is what will deliver value in the long term or medium to long term for investors, extracting value from those assets. So when you look at the geographical diversification, it means that any major shock to the Nigerian banking space will not significantly impact on Access Bank, based on now the diversification across. And with that optimization, they begin to sweat those assets that they have invested on. And that is when I think, based on the timeline, 2026, 2027, that investors begin to also now get more value when for those. So I would say, like the last time I was discussing, patient capital for those that have long-term horizon. You will see that when you look at it based on price to book, it's still less than 0.5 times and still has very long-term prospects, given some of the investments that have been made in some of those strategic countries.
Okay, so that's indications of if the company is positioning for future growth. How much do you gather from Tuesday's investors call? What are some of the strategic insights from that engagement on Tuesday, Ayodeji?
Okay, I think some of the things that jump out me, especially during the Q&A, is the dividend expectation. That's the elephant in the room. Investors were disappointed half year. Why didn't Access Bank pay interim dividend? But at least the group CFO was able to state the reason. There's this policy around the CBN that stopped them around their capital structure, which I believe that based on that response, that the value is about 10 billion, which when you look at that size relative to the shareholders fund of Access Bank, that they would be able to resolve that even if they have to restructure even their balance sheet. So they are trying to affirm to investors that towards the end of year, end of year, they will be able to pay dividend, which will be positive because that's part of what was the minds of most of the analysts that were on the call when we start paying dividend. So I think that that's really going to be a positive one. And given where their share price is, dividend yield will look like one of the most attractive if they sustain maybe their old payout ratio. So that's, I think, is one of the takeaways around that. Around
the earnings call. Yeah, just flashing that on the screen for our viewers to see. When you talk about from an investor and a market dealer point of view, just put that organogram like type of thing back from ProShare, which is just on there. You look at the share price right now. You look at price to earnings ratio, earnings per share, and what the outlook is. If you look down, the share price is at October 24, 25 naira per share, 52-week high. I'm sure you're looking at that around 28.50 to 20.05. So earnings per share 372. If you put all this together as investor indicators, what does that indicate as to where investors how investors should price Access Corp now and into the end of the year, into the new year that's just around the corner? Let's summarize.
Okay, so I would say that say for the general market sentiment, because we expect sell-offs are ahead of the capital gain tax, which we're already seeing in the market. But we think that for those that have that long-term and patient capital, Access Bank will still deliver value. And there's also the possibility to combine that interim dividend that they were unable to pay due to the CBN rule, combine it to the final dividend, which means that the dividend yield at the end of the year would be significantly attractive given the combined dividend that will be paid. So I would say that for investors that understand the risk they are going into that meets their investment objective, you can bet on Access Bank for medium to long term, given that geographical diversification, because that is also what is key, because it means that your earnings is well diversified. No major shock that may come whether from Nigeria or one particular country that may affect the income. And the subsidiaries are beginning to contribute meaningfully. The payments, the lending business, the pension business, and the insurance business are beginning to contribute significantly. So those positives would continue to reposition the bank positively. And patience is required. I can't overemphasize that. And, for those that understand investment, if you are patient and you're willing to buy when it's undervalued, that is when you also now benefit when the bank begins to extract value.
Yes. So patience is a virtue in the market. But again, speed of execution is also important. Okay. It's good having this conversation with you. Thank you so much. We appreciate those market and investment insights into Access Core Literature. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Ayodeji Eboh at Optimus by Afrinvest.